this the homeless guy who kept stealing from the parsonage?" I asked curiously. "No," my dad said and looked up and down the street. Our car was far and wide the only one around. Fortunately, but not all that surprising considering that it was about 2 a.m. on a winter night. It also meant that there were no passerbys that he could have asked for help. "And why is he sleeping on the middle of the street then?" I asked, because I really failed to make sense of that. I got playing on the streets, especially when it was completely void of cars like now, but it truly didn't seem like the ideal place to sleep. My dad crouched down and took a cautionary sniff of the unconscious man. "Well," he concluded, "I fear that our local street sleeper had a little too much to drink. I know him, it's just what he does when he's had a few too many beer or glasses of wine. He doesn't quite know what he's doing when he's inebriated like that. He even yelled at a few kids on the bus stops up the road one time. Aside from that, he's harmless though. He and his ill father live in that little house right there in that corner opposite from the porcelain store." "I know," Kai said excitedly. "I know that porcelain store. Janine took us on a walk on New Year's. There's hundreds of different coffee pots all lined up, and the front door has a little sign with a painted elephant that says, 'I am permanently banned.'" Obviously, Louisa and I giggled. He'd break everything. "So, and what are we gonna do about this elephant here?" He nudged the sleeping man with his foot. "He looks quite heavy, but are we just gonna let him lie here?" My dad shook his head. "No, certainly not. It's too dangerous. Another car could miss him or not hit the brakes in time. No one expects a sleeping person in the middle of the street. We can't get him home either. His father is stone deaf. We could shatter all the coffee pots in the world before his front door, and he wouldn't hear a single thing. And I don't want to search all of this guy's pockets for a key he might not even have. But he can't stay here, even if we closed off the entire street for traffic, which we can't. The temperatures were quite mild for the last week, but there's no way to tell that it won't freeze or even snow tonight. He could easily die of hypothermia." He looked around once more, and then said to us, "Wait here, I'll look around the sleeper's house. Maybe I find an open door." And my dad walked away, indeed looking around the house, at a garden fence. He tried to open the front door, shaking at the doorknob a little, but the door appeared to be firmly locked. Meanwhile, Louisa noticed something else. "Look," she said, "he's injured." She pointed at a chapped palm, just visible beneath the sleeper's head. A wooden splinter stuck out from the skin near the wrist. He could even still determine the color. It was yellow. Where'd he find wood in the middle of the street?" Kai wondered, immediately having summoned his inner detective. He surveyed the street and got stuck at a nearby house's garden gate. It looked a little odd, but more importantly had been painted with peeling yellow paint. Kai got up, looking at the yellow gate, from my dad, who was stood in front of the sleeper's garden gate. A street lantern illuminated the whole scene. The sleeper's garden gate, too, was yellow. "I got it," he said, and used both arms to point at the respective gates. "Look, his own garden gate has the same color." He probably thought it was his own gate because he was drunk. But the one over there was locked, so he kept tearing at it, almost completely unhinging it. "The wood looks pretty done for it." He likely kept going until he caught a splinter, gave up, and lay down on the street to sleep. "Wow, you really are a detective," I applauded, because I couldn't help but agree with his conclusions. "So, if he hadn't caught a splinter," I followed Kai's train of thought, "he would have kept going until he'd torn out the entire gate. I've seen people do it on the TV. They don't know what they're doing and do things they usually wouldn't and couldn't. No, he wouldn't have given up until he'd broken into those poor people's garden." By now, my dad had finished his inspections of the man's house and returned to us. Looking significantly more optimistic than before. Chapter 9, in which we more or less break into an arbor. "Come, children," he prompted. "Let's get Mr. Lasche, that's this poor man's name." I checked at the doorbell, into his garden and into the arbor. "If we're lucky, there's a couch and maybe even a blanket. It's not going to get cold enough for him to freeze there. I'll take his torso. Anna, Louisa, you take one leg. Kai, you're taking the other." It was difficult, even though it was the four of us and only one Mr. Lasche, since he was quite heavy. We had to constantly take care we didn't drag him over the ground. Getting him through the yellow garden gate, the right one, was the most taxing part, even though my dad had left it open in wise foresight. "So," he said, "let's put him down for now. I'm getting a flashlight and look around." We let go, relieved, and having almost exhausted all our energy for the day, especially me, with my still continuously growling stomach. The arbor contained a lot of carpeting, significantly heightening the sleeper's future prospects of warmth and safety. My dad retrieved a small dynamo flashlight from his ever-present black shoulder bag and started winding it up. The flashlight revealed an entire shelf of coffee pots, mugs, jugs, and porcelain plates, each with its own cutesy animals decorations painted on top: kittens, dogs, stags, sheep, ducks, little geese, and so on and so on. My dad didn't even try to sweep the rest of the room with his light, just like us, entranced with the colorful patterns and illustrations. Collections like these aren't as rare as you might think they are, at least around here, he noted. Michel used to have a lot of porcelain industry. I take it that Mr. Lasher's father used to work on one of them, and started his collection from there. In the end, he turned the light cone away from the shelf and let it wander across the room. It stopped at an old canapé next to a low table. He moved the table aside and said to us, "Okay, let's try to lift Mr. Lasher onto the couch here." Now this was hard work, especially since we didn't have a forklift at all of us, especially me, hadn't eaten anything for hours. Just look at a bunch of pretty porcelain plates was nice, but not nearly enough to curb anyone's hunger. Really, if I discovered a mousetrap on the hour's floor with just the tiniest piece of sausage in it, I would have scrambled to get it out of there, even at the risk of getting my own tongue stuck in the trap.